want, you're welcome to sit on the floor that's face up here. So I will offer that. So our final reader is a man of the hour, Christopher Higgs. He lives here in LA with his wife and son, and he teaches at Cal State Northridge. He wrote the complete works of Marvin K. Mooney, a novel released by Sator Press?
I think Ken says Sator.
Sator Press?
Yeah, it doesn't sound as fun as when you said it.
And he assembled a novel one in collaboration with Blake Butler and Vanessa Place, released by Ruiz Books. He, in addition to publishing 2 chapbooks, Colorless Green, Ideas Sleep Furiously, and Becoming Monster, he's written for numerous print and online venues, including New Theory, Diagram, Denver Quarterly, the Paris Review Daily. And then today, we're of course celebrating the release of As I Stand Living from Simple Coping Mechanisms. It's my honor to introduce Christopher Higgs.
Thank you all so much for coming. It really means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Joseph first for hosting the big thing. He's amazing. If you're not familiar with his writing, he's got a book called Fright Catalog, which is so badass. Page 103, shout out to it. In the middle of the book, I'm trying to determine what my favorite books of the year are, and Fright Catalog's on the list. Thank you to Janice Lee, who's the most amazing editor. And she's a really great, she used the term for literary citizen, and Janice is, those of you who know her, she's an amazing literary citizen, and she does so much for so many people. And so I could not be more thankful to be here with her. And in her, she's also an amazing writer. One of her books that kills me, one of my favorite books that intersects with literature and cinema is her book on damnation. I love it, so get it. Thank you so much, Zoe, for coming. It's my first time to meet her, and to listen to that was very powerful, and I can't wait to read all your stuff.
You're so nice.
And Brian, thank you so much for coming. It means the world to me. I met Brian like 10 years ago at Ohio State, and I got to go to dinner with him, and I had one question that I wanted to ask him. I know he won't remember this, but he holds the greatest distinction of all writers, in my opinion, which is that he's the only fiction writer that I know who has a blurb from Gilles Deleuze. And those of you who know me know that I worship at the altar of Deleuze, so I really appreciate you coming. So this is a very important night for me, and I really appreciate you coming. It's very scary for me because I've been a fiction writer for a very long time, and an experimental weirdo one at that, and so I'm able to hide myself behind all these layers of performativity. And so this is the first time I've done something like this where I've sort of bared myself or allowed a rawness about myself or sort of secrets and stuff that I've been really nervous about. Some of you probably write nonfiction and you're used to this, I'm not. So this book is, oh my God, Eugene did the cover and it's dope as hell in my opinion, so thank you, Eugene, for making a very beautiful book. So the way that this started was, I was teaching this modernism survey course at Florida State about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was preparing my notes to teach As I Lay Dying. And as I'm doing that, I'm reading like all the stuff that Faulkner was saying about the book, his Paris Review interview and all that. And he's talking about what I perceive to be sort of constraints, right? And most of my work is constraint-based. And sort of process-oriented. And so I got sort of jazzed on the idea when I found out that supposedly Faulkner gave himself a few constraints, and these constraints include, he was only going to write this book while he was working at night. He was like shoveling coal or something, and so he had like a typewriter set up in the corner. He'd shovel his coal and he'd go over and sit down and type. And supposedly he had no plan. Right? He just sat down and busted out As I Lay Dying. And supposedly, he didn't edit it. He just wrote it, it was brilliant, he sent it off, and they published it. So, the last constraint was that it was written in 6 weeks. And so I thought, that's pretty cool. And then what I realized was, it just so happened that I was getting ready to teach the book right around the time when he started writing it. Which was October 25th. Of course, not 2012. 1930. 1929. October 25th, 1929 to January 12th, 1930. So I said to myself, well, that sounds like a cool constraint. I'll do that for myself. I'll do it. So what I decided to do was I was not going to have a plan. I wasn't going to edit anything. I was just basically going to set up at night, and whatever, I was going to sit down with the typewriter, and whatever came out, and that was that. But the crazy thing is that when I sat down to write, what came out was not fiction. And that scared me, but I just sort of went with it. And so I finished the first night, I wrote like a page or something, maybe 2 pages, and then I went away from it. And then the next night I went and I did the same thing, and I just sort of, whatever was there came out. And so it's very, it took on a life of its own. About 4 weeks into it, Caitlin and I, my wife Caitlin and I, found out that she was pregnant. And so then I thought, I can't stop this book when Faulkner started it. This is a new deal. The new constraint is I'm going to wrap it around to the next year. So I'm just going to keep doing this thing for the whole year so that it would encompass the birth of my son. And so that's what I did. And so the constraint then became a 1-year loop whereby at night I would just sit down and write whatever came. And so what you'll see in the book is just, and so there's no chapters, there's no breaks, it's just chunks. And it just goes and goes and goes. And it's, it begins with a really weird torture fantasy, and then it goes into me thinking about whether or not my heroes are circumcised, and all kinds of strange places, and my love for the Lakers, and teaching, and becoming an adult, all this weird stuff. Okay, I'm telling you all that to say, I had no idea what to read. I had no idea, like, do I pick a thread? Do I just pick a chunk? What do I do? And so what I ended up deciding was I'm going to read 2 things that are, one thing that's sort of focuses on Empress Josephine, and then another thing that sort of focuses on Philip Guston, and then 2 little bits about being a dad. And so Jasper was born on page 100. I'm not going to read when he's born, but the only indication that you get that he's born is this one line. I'll just read this one line, and then I'll back up and do what I'm going to do. On the bottom of 100, and that's the thing, there's no, I'm not telling you dates and shit, but like, if you wanted to, you could track, because, Obama gets reelected, the Boston bombing happens, there's all this cultural event stuff that happens, so, okay, so Jasper's born on 100, the line above his birth, his headache is killing me, seems like I've had one every day this past week. And the first line that introduces his birth is, my wife just said, he farted so hard he woke himself up. And so that's the birth of Jasper. All right, so now I'm moving. I'm gonna go to page 45. I'm sorry, I got the AWP plague, the post-plague thing, so I'm like, ooh. Okay. 45, bottom. All right. Reading Roberto Bolaño's Amulet, which I begin teaching next week. I came across this tidbit about Empress Josephine that caught my attention. Although she was said to be both vivacious and charming, it appears she never smiled in a way that showed her teeth. The reason being that they were all black and rotten. Further research suggests that her atrocious mouth can be attributed to her excessively sugary childhood cuisine. I wanted to learn more about Empress Josephine because this flaw intrigued me. For some reason, I'd always imagined her as like exquisitely beautiful. She was, after all, the first Empress of France. Her husband Napoleon, to me, has always been that handsome and noble, red-robed figure sitting atop his rearing white steed, pointing toward victory in that famous Napoleon crossing the Alps painting by David. In my mind, Josephine was like Helen of Troy. Why, I have no idea. Truth be told, I don't really know anything about her, or about Napoleon for that matter. I do know he wrote love letters, though, because at one point in my past, I appropriated them, and I put them through this translation program a few times, through a few different languages, and made poems out of them, but I don't think I ever published any of them. They exist somewhere in the graveyard of my hard drive. That reminds me, I need to back up my files. I don't think I've backed up my files in a long time. I can't remember the last time I backed up my files, come to think Lakers beat the Bobcats after coming back from a 20-point deficit. Kobe scored 0 points in the first 2 quarters, then 6 in the third, and 14 in the fourth. I still think the season is over, and I still dislike D'Antoni as the head coach. Researching briefly Empress Josephine in regards to her gruesome mouth malady, I ended up looking into Napoleon, which led me to David, which led me to David's painting The Death of Marat, which led me to, now I'm going to kill this woman's name, Marie-Anne Charlotte de Corday d'Armand, the woman who killed Marat. She stabbed him while he was in a bathtub after gaining entrance to his bathroom by explaining to the guards that she possessed a list of names to give Marat detailing known enemies of France. She did have a list, and she did give it to him. As the story goes, he thanked her for her list, and he told her to expect the names on the list would shortly find their expiration at the guillotine, at which time she brandished her knives and she started stabbing the shit out of him. This is 1793. She herself is the one who met the guillotine for murdering the Jacobin leader. In 1847, the writer Alfonso de Lamartine gave her the posthumous nickname, I'm not going to try it, the Angel of Assassination. While David's painting of Marat's death is relatively famous, it's also very much the product of a sympathizer. It's no secret that David was friends with Robespierre and Napoleon and Marat, all of them. What's surprising is that he didn't get the guillotine when the Bourbons returned to power. Oddly, Louis XVIII offered David the position of court painter. But then David refused that offer, and he chose self-exile to Brussels, where he was promptly hit by a carriage and died shortly thereafter. Learning this tidbit, it's hard not to think about Frank O'Hara being hit by that dune buggy on Fire Island. This also, for some reason, makes me think of Nietzsche and his Turin horse. Crazily, David's body was buried in a Brussels cemetery, but his heart was buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, the same cemetery where Gertrude Stein and Jim Morrison are buried. Compare David's painting of the death of Marat to Paul-Jacques-Ami Baudry's painting of the same event, and notice that in Baudry's account, Charlotte Corday, the angel of assassination, stands heroically above the unpleasant-looking corpse of Marat. In the Baudry, we see more of the bathroom, which is like all disheveled, as though a real struggle took place. As well, we see a map of France on the wall. In David's painting, Marat is depicted as this fallen hero. You know that one. He's like green. He's like in the time. Marat is depicted as the fallen hero. Corday gets no voice in David's rendition. She's absolutely absent. For what it's worth, Baudry is also buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. His whole body, I believe. All right. Listening to Morton Feldman's Crippled Symmetry. About this work, Steve Smith wrote in the New York Times, September 28, 2012, "You do not listen to a work by Morton Feldman so much as you enter into it. You assimilate its distinctive sound world and gradually come to inhabit it on your own terms." He also called it an oral analog to Mark Rothko's pulsating color fields or Philip Guston's familiar yet disorienting figures. For me, the piece resembles a soundtrack for a silent film by Guy Madden, or else a nature film without a voiceover. A few years ago, my brother took a photo of me standing in front of or beside the Philip Guston Couples in Bed painting from 1977. It's in the gallery at the Art Institute in Chicago. That painting is 1 year older than me. When I look at the painting, I see most prominently the watch on the right wrist of the red figure clutching what appears to be paintbrushes. I go to the website for the Art Institute Chicago and I find the painting in their database, but when I click on the link to learn more about the painting, I learn that it is simply oil on canvas. For some reason, this strikes me as really odd. Probably because I've been reading Calvin Tompkins' book on Rauschenberg, whose work is anything but basic oil on canvas. Johns, too, who my son is named after. Johns, too, who used something called caustic to paint his American flag paintings. In detail, a detail that's never made apparent through photographic reproductions, a detail only experienced by someone in the actual physical presence of the painting. Anyway, the about page for this Gustin's couple in bed painting says, quote, "A couple in bed. Gustin lays in bed with his wife Musa, their faces pressed together as one in the manner of Brancusi's The Kiss. Here the artist holds his brushes as tightly as he does his wife, who in May 1977 suffered a series of debilitating strokes." Christ, I think. What an utterly depressing story. It changes the painting for me in a way like learning the truth about SANTA changed my experience of XMAS. I don't know if he's asleep or not. And it's bullshit, really. See, I don't care about that. It's just that the red blob and the beige blob are meant to represent Gustin and his wife. Fuck that. Why is Gustin wearing silver shoes then? Why is there a wooden triangle nailed to his wife then? And what the fuck is he doing wearing a watch? Have you ever heard of an artist wearing a watch? What on earth would an artist need with a watch? An artist has no time commitments. Artists float through life like ghosts. Have you ever heard of a ghost with a watch? What bullshit. And this is exactly how I feel about interpretive analysis. God damn it, how awful to read such drivel about Gustin and his wife. What a waste of a beautiful painting. A painting I am standing in front of with my head down. The photo taken by my brother is blurry. I love that it's blurry. It almost obscures Gustin and his wife. Furthermore, I'm unfamiliar with Brancusi's The Kiss, so I have to Google it. There seems to be about 30 different versions of it. Turns out he did a series of sculptures he called The Kiss. And some dumbass website called Acting Out Politics says, after ascribing a tagline to one of the images of the sculptures, that, quote, "Constantine Brancusi, in his cycle of sculptures The Kiss, addresses exactly this point about the tragic isolation of private relationships area from problems of social life." And aside from the obvious grammatical weirdness of that utterance, what pisses me off about it is this desire to pin down a meaning. The desire to say what the sculpture is about. Again, it's like ruins my experience with the work. How am I meant to look at it without thinking about the goddamn tragic isolation of private relationships, blah, blah, blah? Despite all of this, Brancusi had a pretty beautiful beard. All right. And now we move to daddy-ness. 2 little bits. Earlier today, I took my son to the park in order to give my wife some alone time to work on job materials. I had hoped that he would be awake and in a good mood so I could Skype with my parents and give him a chance to see him. Instead, he slept. I sat on a blanket and I read Peter Quartermain's new book, Poetic Subtleties, which opens with a chapter on the dispute between Eliot and Williams. I watched as a fuckload of ants descended on my blanket and converged on a particular spot which obviously contained a spill of some kind of food. These ants were circling and feeding. It was simultaneously disgusting and fascinating. Quartermain argues that Eliot was obsessed with positioning himself in that canon and Williams was the opposite. He was actively trying to resist the canon. Anyway, my son was sleeping and snoring, and I couldn't help but stare at him and smile and think, wow, I can't believe I have a son. I can't believe I love this little person so much. Of late, he's been smiling frequently, not laughing, but smiling. I suppose laughing comes later. At any rate, his smiles are unreal, by which I mean his smiles are so amazing I can't believe they're real. I feel a feeling when he smiles at me that I've honestly never felt before. I don't have a name for that feeling. It's just the feeling I feel when my son smiles at me, which is unlike any other feeling. Last bit. Thank you again so much for coming. I really appreciate it. My son had to go to his 2-month pediatric appointment this morning, and they gave him his first round of vaccines, which included whooping cough and polio and 2 others which are slipping my mind at the moment. I felt awful about it. He cried so hard. Real tears streaming down his little cheeks. Mostly when he cries at home, he just wails and scrunches his face, and it's not actually cry tears. But today, his little face broke my heart. And when I held him in my arms afterward while my wife was checking us out and paying our bill, I took him outside and I walked him around and I whispered to him that he was safe and that we loved him and that we were proud of him for getting through it. He just kept shuddering. And I thought I was going to cry, but I thought that if I cried it would make things worse because he oftentimes plays off our emotions. So I fought the urge to cry. It was really,